Hello fellow kayakers, I'm here today to demonstrate the assembly of a KayaArm, and I'm going to use the KayaArm assembly instructions that come with your KayaArm as a guide, so you can follow along with me with your instructions. So the first piece I'm going to talk through is the parts of the tools that you need for the assembly. You're going to need two 7/16" wrenches. So I'm using today a 7/16" wrench and a 17/16" socket, and I'm going to use a 1/2" wrench and a 1/2" socket. But you could use two 1/2" wrenches if you so choose. It doesn't really matter. And you're also going to need a number 2 or a number 3 Phillips screwdriver, and that's the one with the cross, the cross pattern on it. And lastly, I'm going to use a little box cutter, of course, for opening the boxes and slitting some of the plastic. So this is what the KayaArm looks like. You pull it out of your box and see it's reasonably well packaged here, and I'll go through the pieces, but the hardware's already been somewhat pre-assembled onto the drawing onto the parts to make it more simple. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the plastic. Before I do that, though, I wanted to mention a couple of things. I like to always have a piece of a cardboard or something. You know, you don't want to be careful about doing this work on the dock, because if a stainless steel fastener falls down, you're going to have to go swimming for it. It's much easier if you do it away from the land. And then if you protect the surface you're working on, this is metal, and your better half may not be interested in having scratches to whatever you're doing the assembly on. If you got a shop table, that's great as well. So as I mentioned, I'm going to cut the plastic. And make sure this doesn't end up in our waterways. But it's a shrink wrap. It helps to keep things together during shipment. I'm going to take that, I'm just going to stick it in my pocket. I'm going to go through some of the parts that are in here. You'll see, so this is the KayaArm, the arm itself. And again, I'll cut maybe I'll just cut that right now. The little zip tie. Okay. You'll note next, here's a chain, and I'm just going to cut so we can get at it. It's zip tied here in a couple places, and there and there. Again, I'm just going to take them and put them in my pocket so they don't blow around. There's some tape here, and there's some residue. One of the things you'll see here, okay, so this is what we call the angle, the mounting angle. Underneath the mounting angle, you'll find the instructions for assembling your KayaArm, and that's these here. And the other thing that you're going to find underneath the bracket is two cedar shims for plumbing your mast during installation. So save these. Last, you'll notice then there's a shoe, and that's what slides up and down in your mast, and I'll just take that out. Okay, and the top of your mast, easy to identify, it's the one with the notch in it. You can see the notch here, that's what the chain rests in. Let's just go through the hardware that comes with it. You'll see that there's two, actually the first thing that's talked about, these are two 1/4 inch, 20 threads per inch, stainless steel hex head nuts with nylock nuts on, and two washers to hold the chain. And so there's one nut and one bolt and one washer here, and there's one nut, one bolt, one washer there. The other place that you'll see is we got the other two sets of hardware, and that's these. I think they're 5/16", yes. They go here 5/16", 18 thread per inch bolts, and nylock nuts. And the good thing about the nylock nuts is that they prevent vibration. Sorry, they keep the nut done up tight, and they don't vibrate off, and that's the benefit of the nylock nut itself. If you were to lose one of these, they are described quite well in the assembly instructions, and they're easily available at any most large big box stores, Home Depot, Lowe's, that kind of thing. And so we have stainless steel fasteners, we have aluminum hardware, and we have a hot dip galvanized chain. And we have these in functioning quite adequate well in many saltwater applications. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to then mount the angle bracket onto the mast. And you'll note here what I've done. I'll just leave the instructions here. What I've done is I've kind of made a neat little, I'm going to put this up this way. I've made it, I just try to use 2 by something here. Makes it just a little bit easier for me to get my fingers in behind. What I do is this is going to get mounted, and it's going to get mounted, again, the notch is at the top, and this is going to get mounted, and there's a set of 4 holes here. It's the upper set of holes, and we're going to use these 2 bolts, and we're going to put them into here and tighten them on up. So first of all, I'm just going to loosen those, all right, and I'm going to set those in, and you'll see that they do nicely machined. And then I'm just going to be careful so I can reach around the back side, and that's why I have these on a piece, and I just put that in there. I put little fingers on there just to keep it from coming out. And again for the other side. Okay, now this is where we use the Phillips screwdriver, and we're going to use the 7/16 inch wrench. And we're just going to hold the nut on the bottom, and I'm going to go here. And I just give it a little extra, I want it nice and tight. And then, so that's one done. And now I'm going to go do the other end and use the open ends. Let's look at step number 2 in the process. It says for us to use a flathead. Okay, we've done the angle. Next thing is use the 2 hex head bolts and nylock nuts and fasten the bent arm to the bottom shoe. And one of the things that this notes is note that the bolts pass through the shoe, through the plate first and then the shoe. And that's important because if you don't do that order right, you'll actually come into some binding situations. So here, first of all, I've got this cut off already. And let's just talk about what we've done here. So this is the shoe that's going to slide up and down in our mast. And what we want to do is take the hardware off, which is done nicely. So 1/2 inch this time. So we have to, or 1/2 inch. And again, that's why I have my cardboard here. I don't want it to go falling off into the lake. I'll take that out. I'll do the same here. The reason why we put this in is if we put it into the parts, it keeps things from keeps them from losing the hardware on this journey to you guys. Okay, so as I mentioned, what we want to do is make sure that we put the heads. So we want to do this so the head starts here and proceeds through the shoe. Okay, and I'm going to do the same with the other side. But if you put it the other way, what happens is that the nuts are too long and they will jam and they'll catch in the slide. So again, very important. I just want to make sure we get this in a picture here. But the heads, you can see here's the arm. The heads go through the arm and then into the shoe. Okay, so I'm just going to put my fingers across here, and I'm going to put these on loosely, and then I'm going to tighten them up with my wrenches. Now, it's pretty obvious, but you have the nylock nuts go on the only one way. You'll see the nylon, the white stuff in there, and those go on at the end, and that helps. That creates the locking mechanism for keeping them from vibrating off. Okay, so I do here, and then I'm just going to use my socket wrench. Okay, and I like to make sure these are locked down tight. You want to hold them and push on a little bit. You're pretty good there to go. And I'll do the same with the next one. You note that this KayaArm is pretty well made. Parts are made in Canada at a specialty machine shop that specializes in pharmaceutical and food grade equipment. So we're not talking about offshore equipment here. This is fabricated in a high quality machine shop environment. And the aluminum itself, the ingots, it's part of the global supply chain. The ingots are made mostly in Canada, and some of the aluminum is extruded for some of the parts in the US and for some of the parts in Canada. These are custom specialty extrusions. So let's just look at the instructions to see what the next step is here. It says, okay, using the heckle bolts, washers, and nylock nuts, fasten one end of the chain to the top of the mast and the other end to the top of the shoe. Now, you can see in this example, that part has been done. What we haven't done is tighten up. So this is the shoe. You'll see that the 1/4 is already here, and it goes the bolt, the chain, a washer, stainless steel washer, and the nut. And so what I want to do is tighten that. I don't want to tighten, I want to tighten this so it's a straight pull up. I don't want to make sure it's not bent this way or bent that way, but a nice straight pull up. And again, I'm going to go back to my 7/16 inch wrench and 17 inch socket right here. And so I've got it where I wanted it. I've got my chain facing up. So the last piece, the last nut to fasten is this one here at the top. And again, it's the same configuration. And what's very important here is that the bolt head is on the inside. If the nut is on the inside, you'll actually get some jamming there as well. So make sure that that's threaded right. And what I like to do is fasten it in such a way that the chain sticks straight out, 90 degrees to the part there. So do this with as I can. Again, this is going to be the 7/16. Okay, so there you have it. It's assembled. The next thing we need to do is slide the shoe into the mast. Everything's nice and tight, and just be careful. It's the mast goes against the back of the shoe. The shoe goes against the back of the mast and slides in, and you can see that we're already assembled today. It's a pretty simple DIY, do-it-yourself project. We've kind of designed it for the most part for folks to be able to do both the assembly and the installation themselves, and saving the money on that kind of work. But if you don't feel capable of doing that, it's a very simple exercise for a family member or a handyman to come and do for you. Just show them the video. Thanks very much for watching today. Happy paddling.